Today we are going to be discussing gun control and figure out a solution to that. Please start and say your name.
Dayton.
I'm Rye.
I'm Josh.
I'm Xander.
I'm Ellie.
Perfect. Alright, so the first thing that we should do is break down the issue and talk about what gun control really is. So, I guess we'll start with you. What is gun control to you?
Regulations on the purchasing and owning of firearms.
Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I would say just making sure, knowing who's buying guns, where and when.
Okay.
Pretty much.
What about you?
Controlling and checking in on both who is owning guns and what guns are owning.
I pretty much have the same opinion as them.
Okay.
Regulating gun control, making sure that you're paying attention to who's buying what.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I have an addition to that as well.
Yeah.
I think it's not just who's owning the guns, but who has access to them.
Absolutely.
Just like a deep
Would you
gun.
guys all
That's
generally agree
a
with that?
very important.
That's
yeah.
a good point, man.
Okay, and I would also like to add what types of guns people are buying as well. Would you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's include that. All right, let's start with you. Do you feel that there are any issues with gun control right now? And if, just yes or no?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I would also definitely agree. All right. Let's start with you. Specifically, what bothers you about the state of gun control right now?
I think there's definitely too many gun deaths, so I think that needs to change.
In what aspect?
The number needs to go down.
Well, I mean, gun deaths how?
Just murders. I would say is probably the biggest one.
In what setting would you say?
Thinking on that.
Okay. Start next.
What was the question again?
What do you feel are the biggest issues right now with gun control?
They're too easy to get, and they don't check into who's getting them. Because I know a lot of shady people who should not have guns who do. So they're too easy to get, and they don't really pay attention to who has them, or once you do get them, they don't check up on how you're storing them, who can get to them, whether you have children who can get to them or not, and just all those things. Whether there should be more check-ins. Is kind of how I feel, I guess.
All right, Josh.
Yeah, I think she pretty much hit the nail around the head. It's just way too easy for anybody to really get guns. I mean, there's the 18 rule, but that's really not even good enough on its own. And then the death also they just hand over this weapon and never see the person again. I think there needs to be check-ins to make sure that they're still sane enough to even hold it, or like she said, controlling who can get to it.
All right, and what?
I pretty much have the same opinion of, yeah, it's definitely too easy to get it, and it's also, we gotta make sure that some of these people that are getting the gun should even have one in the first place.
Okay, so you're looking at it in a retention type of way, people continuing to have guns.
Yeah.
You agree with him that they need to be checked over?
Yeah.
Okay, what about you?
I think that per the amount of school shootings that we've had in the last few years, and the fact that most of the shooters are between the ages of 18 to 20 years old, that we need stricter age limits on weapons and mental health checks for the teenagers that are currently living under roofs with guns, and they need to be in a safe. Not a locked room, a safe.
All right. Can we get back to you? Do you have anything else to add to what you were going to say, or?
I would definitely say that it's the types of weapons that people have access to. I think it's part of the problem.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So there are definitely a lot of restrictions that probably need to be stricter about these things, right? So I guess let's go through and talk about each type of weapon, I guess. What weapons specifically do you guys feel need to be restricted more?
I think weapons with like a very high capacity.
Okay.
I think that's definitely
I
heightens the level of damage that can be done with it.
All right.
Yeah.
I definitely think that automatic assault rifles and automatic assault weapons should be banned. Why are weapons that we use in wars? Why can you buy those for hunting deer? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Definitely.
If that is a weapon of destruction and killing, why are you using it to hunt a helpless animal? Like, I get hunting deer, just get a normal shotgun or rifle. You don't need an automatic weapon for that. That's
Alright.
kind of how I view that.
What about you?
While I do agree with her, I do think it could be tiered because
Mhm.
there is definitely the aspect of it's fun, and there's people that will take care of their weapons and only shoot it in the completely proper situation. So if somebody's been a gun owner for 10 years already, why not let them mow it? As long as they're still, maintaining it and keeping it out of other people's way, where they can't get to it. But yeah, absolutely, 18-year-olds shouldn't be able to go and buy an AR-15 or something like that, or anything that can do a lot of damage really quick.
All right. Xander?
Yeah, I pretty much have the same opinion. Like, why? What do you need an automatic weapon for? Like, honestly, I mean, yeah, for home defense, but are you getting raided by 100 people? Do you really need a full auto weapon for that? That's my opinion.
All right. Anything else that hasn't been said that you would like to add?
So, because I know a lot of people are going to point this out, it's like with military personnel that are out of the military, yes, they should be allowed to still have weapons. They served our country, but as somebody who lived under a roof with a Marine who only has a pistol because of how many kids are in his house, if you're between the ages of 18 to 20, you should not have access to any automatic weapons.
Okay.
And you need to have regular mental health screenings because things can change. But if you're an 18-year-old, you should not have an access to an automatic assault weapon that's used in our military.
I want to touch more on the mental health screenings that you suggested. So, what would that look like to you if we started to implement that?
For example, as somebody with bipolar disorder, if you have an unstable mental health disorder that has been in your file, you should not have an automatic weapon. Because especially if you have borderline personality disorder or bipolar, if you have really high highs and you're fine, but your low lows are you are going to hurt yourself with something, or as one of these school shooters recently had bipolar disorder, and his shooting was when he had his lowest point. And I don't think that if you have a strong mental health disorder that you cannot stabilize correctly, you should not have access to a gun.
Alright, so let me ask you guys this then. If somebody who hasn't had a diagnosed disorder like that, that's not on the record, so how would you guys go about trying to combat something like that?
Can I go first? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that they should do the same depression screenings that they give regular teenagers who come in and say, I'm having bad thoughts. They give you paperwork. They give you, I've had severe genetic depression and anxiety my whole life. I've done the essay, the paperwork. They ask you a bunch of questions, and they ask you the same questions repeatedly to track your responses to see if they're improving or not. And it tells them whether you're in a safe state of mind. And also, if you go to the ER and you say, I am having a depressive episode, or I'm having thoughts of this, this, and this, they give you screenings. They ask you these guided questions to find out if you're a danger to yourself or somebody else. And I think that everyone should have to go through a psych screening at some point in their life to decide whether they are stable enough. Because we've had this conversation in our household that you should have to go through certain screenings to determine whether you're stable enough mentally by yourself or the people in your household to have a weapon, because things change so quickly, and when you're in states like that, you're not yourself.
You guys, go.
So, back to the screenings, I think they should do what the screenings that they do for military. When they get out, they have to go through a mental health screening before they can re-enter society.
Sure.
so they're not a threat to due to their PTSD and the bodies that they've seen. I think if you are going to, if you're young, like if you're over 21, if you're able to drink, you should be able to own a weapon. That's my personal opinion. If you're old enough to drink alcohol, you should be well old enough and mature enough to have a weapon. But I think they should do like the military mental health screenings as soon as you get out. Like question them with certain scenarios. That way they know that you are safe and you are not putting anyone else in danger.
Do you guys have anything to add about what they just said, or you guys just largely agree?
I largely agree, but I do have something.
Okay.
Not only do I think they should have like the checkup, like when you're going to buy a weapon or whatever, like they would like say you're adopting a kid or something, you know, and make sure you're fit. I think there should also be like every 6 months or like every year, maybe even just depending on like the kind of weapon, they should keep checking up on you because shit happens. You know, you lose a spouse or something. You know, you lose it even to like insurance or something. Who knows? You know. So yeah, you're not always going to be mentally fit, even if you are now.
So you're suggesting every 6 months do a screening like that if you're owning a weapon?
I threw that out as a suggestion. I'm not 100% sure where I stand on exactly the time frame, but yeah, it's continuous health checks.
Well, yeah, let's add on to that. I mean, what would you guys say
I
would
mean,
be...
they come in and they check whether your apartment's safe every year. You know, they do apartment and building tests. I feel they do CPS checks if you adopt a child, like he said. If you foster a pet, they come and check if it's a safe environment. I feel like they should continue to do those checks, like the same way that they come in and they check our smoke alarms and whether the building's still structurally safe. They should come in and see, okay, how do you store this? Who's in your household? Is everybody mentally well enough that you can have this? Because you, as the gun purchaser, can be mentally well enough, but your 14-year-old could be getting bullied, and your 14-year-old could know the code to that gun safe.
Okay, that is exactly where I wanted to go next. Do you guys have anything to add, by the way, to...
I think if, like she said, especially with teenagers, especially nowadays where everything is on social media, if you have kids, I think they should get checked in a lot more often if you have a gun in the house. Because kids, one, pick up on things very easily. And it's not that hard, like, especially if it's like a number safe, it's not that hard to guess. I think if you're going to have a safe, it needs to be like a biometric safe. That way, they can't touch it. They can't have access to it. Also, it's pretty easy to break those locks on the safe to get it to open. But if you have a biometric, it's really hard. It's a lot harder than like a pad.
Okay, so logistically speaking, those things obviously cost a lot of money. That technology is expensive. So how would you guys try and get those into people's houses then if they want to buy a weapon?
I would say you don't even have to have as fancy as that. If you can set a code well enough that your child can't know it. I know my mom's birthday. I know my dad's birthday. I don't know the last 5 digits of their social security. I don't know, their parents' birthdays right off the top of my head. I don't know even like their first pet's name if it's a name thing. So you can come up with a code that they won't be able to guess, the same way you can come up with a code for your accounts online. And just a matter of who knows. Because somebody in a negative mental state, they probably won't be thinking clearly enough to be like, okay, I'm going to go get this, I'm going to break this lock, I'm going to watch tutorials on how to break this lock. They're not that driven, because a lot of people, when they're that depressed, they're going to give up really easily because they're exhausted. Sure. They're going to be like, I can't figure this out. I'm either going to find a different way or I'm going to bed. Because as someone who's been there, you're exhausted. You don't have the energy to look up how to break this safe and get all this stuff, unless you're the type of person who is planning that far ahead. But even then, if we're talking about the parent in that situation, they would have noticed, hopefully. Hopefully.
Also,
Keyword.
to add on to that, I mean, like I said, I grew up with a Marine in the house. My stepdad had a lock on his closet door, and we lived in a really old house, so he broke the floorboards to hide the guns. And the only reason why we found out is because we moved out of the house.
I found out when I was 18 that my dad, throughout my childhood, had pistols stashed around the house because he is a former police officer with PTSD. But I only found out when I was 18, and I was gathering some of my stuff from his house, and he, like, moved something from his mattress, and I saw one. And I was like, oh, and he's like, yeah, they're all around. But you wouldn't know that because you don't need to know that. And they're always locked. They always have the safety on. They hardly have anything in the chamber. They have enough for this PTSD vet to feel safe in his home.
So you guys, without that type of experience and living and growing up with that, I kind of want to hear a little bit more about you guys and what you guys feel about that. Would you guys be more comfortable with people kind of being obligated to buy a safe like that, or do you believe that it should be up to the parents and potentially the gun seller's discretion as to how people hide these weapons from their kids who may be experiencing something that may, sway them into wanting to use it? Yeah. What would you say? If you need
Come back. Yeah, I was just about to say, come back.
I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like if it was going to come down to like biometrics or like combination, I feel like it could be based on like the kind of weapon. Like, say you have a fully automatic weapon that you, like, in my world where you you earned it over time of proving you're worthy of it. That one should be in something like that, but also if you're able to afford one, you probably can afford that kind of safe anyway, because those are a lot more expensive than a handgun.
Sure.
But a handgun, like a lot of the time, that really is for like self-defense and home defense, and you're not going to necessarily want to go through all the steps to do something like that right away. I think that could be a little bit more relaxed, as long as it is still out of the way from a kid.
Do you have anything you'd like to add, Dave?
I think I'm good on this one.
Okay. So the next biggest thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was type of weapon and the different restrictions that we would all come up with to try and alleviate a lot of the fear of, the biggest thing right now would be like the mass shootings at schools, malls, and things like that. So I guess how do you guys look at a handgun as opposed to like maybe a shotgun? Because in my opinion, I do feel that there's a lot of danger in concealment and not knowing what it is ahead
That
of
is
you.
very true.
So I guess let's kick it off.
As a hairstylist, I mostly do men's cuts. The amount of times that a guy will sit down, and as he sits down, I see that he has a gun on his hip. I know that he's not going to pull it out and use it on me. I am in my salon, I feel safe, but for a moment, there's always like a skip of a breath in my chest because what if? What if he doesn't like his haircut and that's what sets him off today? There's always like he has a weapon and I don't. All I have is my tools. And to me, they're tools, not weapons, but my boss is always like, if you're in an emergency, use your shears. Which is, the fact that we even have to think that way is crazy.
Do you have anything you'd like to add on to that? How do you feel about?
I definitely think concealment is a dangerous thing because most places where shootings happen, like, it's not a location where a gun should be in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you've been in the mall when someone had a weapon.
Yeah.
How did that experience affect you then? And does that affect your opinion on this at all?
Yeah, because, I guess I don't know a lot of the details because I didn't, see it happen. I was just there when it happened, but, yeah, I don't know.
I think that pertaining to what kind of gun and what kind of security thing you should have, if you have a pistol, you can hide that very easily, pretty much anywhere in your home, to where a kid wouldn't find it.
Or on your person?
Exactly. I think if it's an automatic weapon, it needs to be locked behind a locked door.
Mm-hmm.
In case, for example, if a 5-year-old sees a gun, first of all, they're not going to know exactly what it is. And second of all, they will play with it because it's a child.
They'll play with
And a
rockets.
lot of people will leave a door unlocked, and there will be a weapon in there. And then they're freaking out because their 5-year-old is running around with a gun or a knife. I think that if you're in a public place, specifically with schools, I think the only person that should be allowed to have a gun on them is a school resource officer, because that is their job. Just like mall security should. If it's just a random person walking in, no. Especially if it's a school. And I'm very strongly opinionated on that because I've been in a school shooting, and it is traumatizing.
Absolutely. Do you guys have anything you'd like to add on about?
She actually just hit on something I didn't want to bring up. I am not super comfortable with the idea of people carrying around handguns with them and stuff, but I also feel like there isn't as much of a need for it if guns were so controlled to begin with, which a lot of people use as like, I would rather have my gun if somebody was crazy and stuff, it's the best defense, but if it's all controlled and stuff like that, you would never have to defend against something you might need a gun for, you know?
Okay.
So yeah, that's why we have police officers, is how I see it, you know?
Okay. So, in a perfect world, then, what would guns look like? Would there only be give me a rundown of how like purchasing a gun would go, and what types of guns you can even buy, and what a normal person would have access to. I'd like to hear from everybody on this, so please think about it,
If
like
you can-
individually.
A perfect world where there's, not everyone is terrified of these school shootings or mass shootings. I think civilians should have access to one handgun and one automatic weapon as long as it's locked in a safe where kids can't touch it. And then I know ex-military personnel, they have a little bit more leeway because they were in the military. I still think they should go through severely thorough mental health screenings because they've seen war. But I think civilian-wise, it should be more restricted. And military should be getting a whole lot more screenings before they are allowed to touch a weapon after they leave.
Okay. Henry?
I think in a perfect world, I just think we don't need higher end stuff like we don't need an M4 surely, right?
Okay.
And we don't need higher stuff like that. We don't need an M4 was the first thing that came to mind, but stuff like that,
Yeah, high power.
high
things
power,
like
yeah.
Okay.
For hunting, of course, I don't know, I don't know gun models, but a shotgun's fine for hunting. Whatever else you use for hunting is fine. And then for handguns is for home defense, and I feel like that's enough at that point. I just feel like those three things are really all people really need in the end. So, in a perfect world.
Okay, so you would have major restrictions on fully automatic rifles.
Yeah,
you would
just
allow shotguns for hunting recreational purposes.
Yeah.
Handguns only in the home. How would you feel about concealed carry? Would you allow that?
That's a good question. I didn't actually really think about that. I feel like concealed carry, though scary, is a good idea to an extent. There's always pros with the cons with the pros,
And you believe that pros outweigh the cons?
That's the part that I'm not too sure about it myself, is that I feel like there's a lot of gray area and a lot of there's this, but there's also that. I feel like it's more of a 50-50. But when the concealed carry does inevitably help out someone, it helps a lot. It can just situation over. And then there's the flip side where the opposite happens. So I didn't really think about it too hard, but
in your perfect world, if concealed carry was illegal and that sort of thing, then theoretically, would that situation even be necessary?
no. If in the perfect world, no, I don't feel like it would be necessary. I'm sure there's other ways, and in the perfect world, I'm sure we would have found other ways. So,
I think I'm pretty okay with most forms of weapons. Not going into detail a little more, but yeah, I think they should not be brought outside the house unless they're in their proper case, being brought to shooting range, to hunting grounds, whatever. Mm-hmm. But pistols, I agree with for self-defense. I personally do want one myself eventually. But I'm not taking it outside of here unless I'm going to the range or whatever. I'm agree with shotguns and rifles for hunting. And then I also think there's like, while they are obviously dangerous, high-powered like assault rifles, automatic rifles. If, like I said earlier, if you have proven that you were like good to have a gun for so long, quality checks, and if you have, I think it's true growth for all the guns as well, as if you've had proper training on how to use a gun, especially an assault rifle, then I think there's no problem with letting you keep it as long as you can prove that you're worthy of it and you can keep it safe.
Okay. There was one thing Ellie said that I kind of want to piggyback off of. She said that she thinks that vets should be able to keep more weapons or stuff like that. I know some alarming statistics that make me feel the opposite way.
Okay.
22 veterans a day commit suicide because of PTSD. PTSD doesn't just happen right when you're leaving the military. It can grow over time. My dad has severe PTSD. I grew up in that household. I know how it happens. It happens over time. It's not right away, and you don't even know it's PTSD until you're right at the end of it. Because in it, it's something you don't know. So I think vets should actually have more restrictions than civilians. I think they should have more mental health screenings. They should have more mandated screenings and more restrictions on what weapons they can have and when. Yes, they do have the training, but they've also seen some things that our minds can't comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
And adapting to civilian life is one of the hardest things that they can do after that. So having access to something that in itself can be a trigger of that PTSD is not a good idea, because even seeing that weapon, even if they have it for recreational reasons, nostalgia reasons, other reasons, can be a trigger and send them right back. So I think that there's actually programs where vets send their weapons to a gun shop. And when they want their weapon for something recreational, they have to come in, sign it out, and they have to have a conversation about it beforehand to make sure that they are in a well enough state, because it's ran by another vet. He'll be able to look at them and be like, "You're not well, man," before he gives them their weapon back. And I think more programs like that should be in place. And as far as civilians go, I don't think we should have concealed carry. I think we should look a lot more like how the UK is, where they really don't have gun violence because they really don't have guns. They have knife violence because they have knives. But you can shoot a lot more people in a minute than you can stab in a minute.
Yeah.
And that's the scariest thing. That I would rather have knife violence, because you can get to a stab wound a lot faster than everybody. You know? That's how I feel about that.
So I think that handguns for home defense is an ideal thing, but I feel like they still need to be regulated. I don't think all handguns are okay. I think firing rate is a major factor in capacity, and are two of the biggest factors that should determine what handguns are okay for home defense versus higher powered weapons that need to stay in the range, if they should be owned at all, which I think they could be, as long as they're designated to certain areas that are just for these kind of entertainment purposes. And then staying with hunting weapons, I think they also need to be looked at. Certain shotguns and rifles should have certain capacities and firing rates, because you don't need to take a dozen shots at a deer in quick succession. You just need the one or a couple. I think a pump shotgun's gonna have 5 rounds, and I think that's plenty. Something like that.
You have something you want to know?
So piggyback off of what she said, I also think that Marines need a whole lot more. But also coming from somebody whose dad has a really bad background, and they still allowed him to have a gun. With my dad was in a gang. That should not be allowed. If you know, with background checks, first of all, they need to be really, really thorough.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And as soon as you see anything gang related, they should not be able to access any type of gun, because.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, so you're advocating for this in spite of your father's background?
Yeah, my dad has thought we hid his meth from him, and I've had a gun pointed to my head by my father before. He's had his friends come over and scare the shit out of us with guns out 3 in the morning. if there's any like violence on their record